Hi everyone, thanks for joining me on what is a beautiful spring day here in Somerset, which is a pleasant relief from the endless rain and wind that we've had over the winter. So it's really nice to be back in the shed as well, although it's still quite chilly. So in this tutorial we're going to address three different issues, but they're interconnected. So we're going to look at how to play scales on the ukulele. We're going to talk about how to practice them using a metronome. And the bigger picture is that by talking about these things and using these exercises, you'll be able to improve your speed and fluency. So scales, metronome practice, speed and fluency. Those are the three things we're going to look at today. Now, you all should have been able to download the sheets which were attached to this tutorial. 2 sheets. Let me know if you need any help with that. So it's just called Scale Exercises. The first sheet, the C major scale, and then there's some other scales which we'll talk about a little bit later. So we're just going to focus on page 1. Good place to start. So the first step is to decide what is the purpose of practicing scales. What are you hoping to achieve? Are you doing it for technical reasons, or are you doing it to improve your knowledge of the fingerboard? And hopefully a combination of the two. Scales are really important. I know some people are like, oh, scales, and they balk. But scales are really important because they're the building blocks of music. So they can help you to understand the instrument better and to understand music better. So I really encourage you to give them a little bit of love and attention. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is the fretting hand fingering. This is really important. Obviously open string doesn't require any fingers, but we can use those open strings to prepare. And then second finger on the D, the open E. Notice I'm not playing, I'm just purely thinking about my left hand or my fretting hand. The open E, and as I'm thinking about that open E, I'm preparing with my first finger to go down on the F. The next note is the G, which I can drop onto very nicely. I release this first finger when I play the G. This is important. You don't want to just have fingers staying down, because then when you need to lift them up, there's a lot more work to do. And then as I play the open A, I release the third finger, and I'm preparing with the second finger to drop onto the B. And now I'm going to drop onto the C. When I play the C, I didn't lift the B. And that's because when I descend, I'm going to come back to the B. So I don't want to play the B, lift the finger up as I play the C, and then have to put it back down. You see, I'm inherently lazy. So I'm going to keep that second finger down so that after the C, I can just release the third finger, and there's my B already down. All right, so these are kind of these, subtle little technical things. Do you leave the finger down or do you release it? And these are decisions that you need to make by yourself, okay? If you're just ascending the scale, then you don't need to leave the B down. But if you're going to ascend and then descend, leave the B down. All right. So step 1 with the scale is to reach the point of muscular memory with the fretting hand fingers. So you're not fishing for which finger is going down. The hand is going to stay in position, and you're just going to play. I don't even need to look, my finger's nowhere to go. They're just going to drop onto the notes. So that's a very good way to practice it. It's surprising how many times I play that scale with students, and we go through the whole fingering thing, and then when it comes to playing it, they'll start with the first finger, or they'll do something weird, like trying to play with the second finger on the G. No, we really want to have this pattern. Pattern is really important. Stage 2 is to really think about the picking hand fingering. Now this might be the challenging part for you if you're not so used to fingerstyle technique, and so you need to give this some serious attention. And once again, the really important thing is to have this muscular memory in the fingers, in the hand and fingers, so that you're not cheating and like hopping across the strings with an index finger or a middle finger. We want to achieve this really nice fluid motion. You know, I often use this analogy and I say, well, you know, do you hop on one leg or do you walk using two legs? Which is, you know, which is the easiest? Is it easier to hop or is it easier to walk? And because the answer is to walk using two legs. And so it's the same principle with our fingers, hence we call it walking fingers. There are occasions when we'll use the same finger, but for the scales, I don't want to talk about that. I want to focus totally on getting this really nice fluid motion in your picking hand and getting this nice feeling of the fingers walking, and then they'll be able to run. But we've got to walk first. Now I'm going to do an exercise with you just using this hand. I'm not going to think about where these fingers are going in the fretting hand. I'm going to look on my tablature. I'm going to look at the string that I'm playing and I'm going to use the fingers accordingly. So that probably sounded like gobbledygook. It did to me, but anyway, follow through with my idea. So I'm going to start with the M finger on the C string and then the index finger, because my second note, my D, is also on the C string, but I don't want to interfere with this train of thought. So I've got two notes on the C string. I'm going to go M and I. Now when I move to the E string, I've got three notes. Okay, so I'm going to M and then I and then M, and then I move to the A string and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes. So I've got index, middle, index, middle, index, then I come back to the E string. I've got three notes and then two notes on the C string. Okay, so in other words, I'm playing two notes on the C string and I'm just going to use open for now to get the feel of the pattern. Three notes on the E string, 5 notes on the A string, 3 notes on the E string, 2 notes on the C string. You can annotate this if it helps you. And the important thing is I've got M, I, 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 M. Now that really lets me focus on the mechanics of my picking hand. And although it seems strange, 2 notes, 3 notes, 5 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes, that's basically what our scale pattern is once we put down the fretting hand fingers. But can I play it faster? Let's try. I'm going to try this again. I've just had to stop the video and retake it because I messed it up. So I'm just going to share that with you because nobody's perfect. I'm going to try this exercise, but I'm going to really focus on playing it to the rhythm. So 4 beats per bar. All right, so... So I'm concentrating really hard to do that, and I feel like I could work on that a little bit more just to get more of a sense of that first beat being the strongest beat. That's the idea. I'm not going to dwell on that too long. And also I'm thinking, why is that so hard? Because when I add that in, I don't have to think so much about these fingers. So I think that's quite interesting. Anyway, we move on to the final stage of learning the basic scale pattern, and that is once you've got the muscular memory with the fretting hand and once you've got the muscular memory with the picking hand, then we're going to combine the two. Now never underestimate how difficult this is to do, because you know, if you think about the piano, the keyboard, No offence to keyboard players, piano is a beautiful instrument, and I found it very challenging. But the hands are in the same position, aren't they? And basically doing the same thing, although I know it gets much more complicated. But we've got two completely different techniques. This one's pressing down and this one's pulling. So it's very, you know, there's a lot of brain power, for me anyway, in playing these fretted stringed instruments. So here we go. We're now at the point of being able to combine both hands, and I'm taking this really slow tempo, and in fact now I'm going to bring in my metronome just to keep me honest. I have a nice little metronome app on my phone. I'm sure you can easily find one. This one says Allegro 120, which is very fast. We're not going to do that. Now I'm going to change it so that I'm in 4/4 time, and I'm going to take it right down to 60, which is what I've got as my suggested metronome marking for where to begin. Oh, it's a bit quiet. Turn it up. It's got my metronome all set up, and then we're going to play through this. We'll do the repeat. So I'll count us 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very slow, and I found that I really wanted to go faster. Probably you did as well. It's quite hard to just maintain that constant beat, isn't it? But that's where it's really important to use the metronome. And this first exercise, we're obviously playing a note on each beat. And that's the easy part. It's going to get trickier, trust me. Alright, so I've concentrated on using middle and index fingers, and I probably should have said this earlier, but you could use thumb and index, or you could use index and middle, or you could use index and ring, which is the A finger. That doesn't work so well on the ukulele, but I definitely think the PI. That could be a thing. Alright, so you could work on that. It really is very cold in here, so this is good warming up exercise for me. Now, if you have a look at the second line, which is bar 5, you can see it's the same scale, C major, but now I've got a little bit of rhythmic variation. Alright, so rather than increase the speed of my metronome, put it up to like 66 or whatever, I've got some rhythmic variations. Alright, so basically now we've got the tonic note, the root note, the C on the beat, on a crotchet beat or quarter note, and then we've got eighth note. So it's like 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and metronome, same setting, 60, 4, 4, just 1, 2, 3, it'll be 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and etc. Let's try that. Let's see if we can do it. 2, 3, 4. So it's quite challenging to repeat, which is what I suggest, and you can do any number of repeats. And using the metronome and doing the repeats helps you to build up confidence, if you like, in playing in time and rhythmically, and also what we talked about before, the muscular memory. So by the time you get to playing this without the metronome, which I suggest you also try, you feel very relaxed about it and in control. And that's really important. But I feel when I first start playing with the metronome going, I'm quite anxious. I don't know if you have this same sensation, but whenever I start practicing with the metronome, it's like, and it takes a while for me to settle down and almost be able to ignore it, although it's quite invasive. I've got it quite loud so that you can hear it. I also sometimes have it going muted, so you just get the visual. That's quite interesting because you suddenly look and you realise that you're not following your metronome at all. But that's another story. Anyway, moving on. Let's move on to the third line, which is bar 8. As you can see, it's the same scale, but another rhythmic variation. This time I've got the crotchet or quarter note followed by 2 groups of triplets. All right. And then another crotchet, and then 2 groups of triplets, and then the minim at the end. So this is quite challenging. I'll clap it out for you first. 3, 4, 1, 2 and a 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and a 3, 4, 1, 2 and a 3 and a 4, 1 and a 2 and a 3, 4. So once again, the first time through wasn't so good, was it? So yeah, clap it through until you feel confident with it, and then we put it on and see if we can play. I'll count a bar. 1, 2, 3. Again. Last time. So I think that's quite fun. Maybe I'm a sad person. No comment. But I quite like that, and it just feels quite nice to play, and it's also quite musical, isn't it? So we're getting away from that very kind of, scale kind of feeling into making it more into a melodic line, which is what it is. Slightly boring one, but nevertheless, with that rhythmic variation, it becomes more interesting. Now, questions to think about. Ask yourself, how did you go, okay, with the rhythm, that's the obvious one. How did you go with the fretting hand fingering? I bet by now you're feeling quite confident with the muscular memory. How did you go with the picking hand? This is the tough one because we can kind of see our left hands or picking hand. So it's quite easy to kind of like, oh, I've got a second finger there. But we don't see this hand so well. So you could maybe use a mirror, or you could just go back to the first one and just think about what your right hand is doing when you leave it to the muscular memory, and are you really getting that nice flow of middle index fingers. Okay, moving on to the fourth line, bar 10. This is where we really up the ante. This is where things start to get very challenging, and we're looking at playing semiquavers or 16th notes. So, can I even clap this fast? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 2 and a 3. It's quite fast. So I'm not convinced that my starting tempo of 60 was actually that generous. And we were all thinking, oh, wow, that's really slow, isn't it? Because now it's actually really quite fast. Anyway, you can progress to that. That's what I mean. It's stages of learning, isn't it? And the other day I read the fastest way to progress is slowly and persistently. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was basically that. So, you need patience and you need perseverance. And it's the long haul, all right? So don't despair if you find that final one very fast. Just drop the metronome down and do the clapping exercise to a slower tempo, even if it's 40. But since we're challenging ourselves at 60, let's see if the teacher can do it. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's really fast, isn't it? But I can do it. Woohoo for me. Let's drop it down to, I got 48 here. I'll just so you get the feel of how you can slow your metronome down. 3, 4. Right, so you really need to have the awareness of where the beat is. You might, if you were going to play that one, you might want to do the first one, the first line for. It's really very slow. I actually really like the slow version. So maybe we'll cross out 60 and put 48 as a better metronome marking. What I like is that you can really feel and hear the connection with the notes. Letting each note ring on. So there really is a sense of line, isn't there? The note, I play the note and as it starts to dip, and then the next one comes in. So it's not just this kind of some are short, some are longer, whatever. You really want to have this really kind of blooming, singing sound. That's why I like the metronome slow. Okay, so I think those exercises are quite useful. Let me know, and if I can do more tutorials if you need more help with understanding how that works. But let's just have a quick look at the second page now. So basically what's going to happen on this page 2 is that we're developing our major pattern and we're moving it up the fingerboard. All right, so we no longer have an open string because we're going to start to play, for example, in second position, the D major scale. That's at the top of the second page. Now, instead of having an open string, the first finger is doing that job. All right, so I start with 1. Very, very important. First finger is going to be playing all the notes on the second fret. Okay. Now, my third finger reaches up to play the E. Notice I'm not playing it as an open string. All right, so this is where the learning of the fingerboard comes in. And if you didn't know that, now you know it. All right, so the open E string, you can also play 4th fret of the C string. All right, so D and then E with the third finger. Now I'm moving to the second string. First finger's on the F sharp, still that's my second fret. Now the G, I'm just going to drop on with the second finger. Okay, my A is not going to be the open A, first string. It's going to be played with the 4th finger, the pinky finger reaching up. Now I'm going to use the first finger to play the B on the first string, and the third finger to play the C sharp because we're in the key of D major, and then the pinky finger on the D. All right, we're not going to descend. We're going to do the ascending once more. Now think about the pattern, okay? I'm not going to play. 1, 3. So we've got D, E, 1, 3, third string. Now we move to the second string. We've got F sharp, G, A. The fingers are 1, 2, and 4, second string pattern. I'm just going to leave them down just to, I think it's easier to see. Now I move to the first string, and the pattern is 1, 3, and 4. So I've got B, C sharp, and D. So if I think about my fretting hand pattern for the whole scale, it's 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. Notice how I'm keeping my hand really still and in position. The thumb is behind, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's kind of hovering behind between the first and second fingers, and it's relaxed. It's not, I'm not gripping hard. The weight and the strength is coming from my elbow. All right, I'm not pushing the strings down. I'm using the weight of my arm so that I get a very solid contact with the fingerboard. So I can take my finger off, my thumb off, I mean, sorry, and then I can still get the notes nice and clean. It feels a bit weird, but anyway, that's my point. You don't need to be doing this, you know, claw grip. Think of weight. Sorry, that was a diversion. So 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. Now, when we come to play it, I'm actually going to lift fingers. I wanted to keep them down so that you could get a sense of the pattern. All right, so if I play this now as if I was going to be practicing it, 1, start with 1, and then when I play 3, 1 comes up so that it can move into position, ready to play the F sharp. 1 and 2, 1's come up, and then 2's come up, 1's getting ready for the B, and then on this string, because I'm going to descend, I leave the fingers in position, release the pinky, release the third finger. And you can see that as I'm descending, I'm playing the second finger, the G, and as I'm playing that, the first finger's gone down. So there's this kind of minute second of preparation in advance. So in other words, I'm not just waiting and waiting to position the finger exactly on the note. I've got a little bit of forethought, if you like. And that's where, once again, the slow practice, release the 1, slow and thoughtful practice, release the 1, release the 2, release, don't release, sorry, keep them in position because we're going to descend. Thinking about the pinky finger on the A and dropping on with the 2 and the 1 and the 3. Okay, so the point is to think about whether you're releasing or leaving them down. And that pattern, I love this pattern because then we can move it. So second line, 4th position, E major, we move it up 2 frets. Exactly the same pattern. 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. And this is our E major scale in 4th position. And then, what did I give you? I gave you the F major scale in 5th position. F, sounds wild. There's our B flat there. So it will really help if you're aware of the notes C, B flat, A, G and F. I don't expect you to do it that quickly. I'm just giving you a quick run through. And then the G major scale. So, oh look, here's another G, same as the open 4th string or the 3rd fret of the E string. All G's. But if we play this in 7th position, so now my first finger is positioned on the 7th fret, same pattern that I've just used. 1, 3, it's a G major scale. 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. It's the high G on the 10th. E on the 7th, D, C, B natural, G, not G, A, and G. So engaging the brain. So it's quite challenging for me to actually think of all these things and talk at the same time. But it's a good test, isn't it? So they're just major scales. There's obviously a lot of other scales that we could do, the minor scales, the blues scales. And if you're interested in improvising, then scales are really useful for that. And, you know, will enable you to play in the higher positions. So have a go at them. And as I say, if you're not that familiar with the notes on the fingerboard, then you can write them in. That's fine. And as I say, I think it's just as important whether you're reading the notation, which obviously tells you what the note is, or if you're looking at the tab, which is the diagram of where it is. Whichever you're using, the important thing is that you know the name of the note. All right, so you should know that the 5th fret of the E string is an A. These are things that, you know, I think are really important. That's my little rant for the day. Let me know how you get on with it. So some quite intense technical stuff here. And the metronome takes a bit of getting used to. Do the clapping. That really helps. Clap out the rhythms before you try playing them, because as I say, it's like trying to do everything all at once can be a bit overwhelming. And have some fun. Let me know how it goes. Bye for now.